Hello everyone, welcome to my slightly dark and dingy front room. Thought it was time for a little update on assignments, portfolios and so on, and basically what's going to be happening in between now and the summer. So here we go. So the idea is to consider the reviews, which you're in the main doing now, I hope, and think about the second portfolio requirements and beyond. So kind of current things that I hear about from various conversations with apprentices are perhaps the usual struggles of managing learning and work, never easy. Also, some questions about what additional input is needed, and perhaps academic writing classes seem to be quite popular at the moment. It's a particular skill, academic writing, it's something you can learn. Maths and English, oh dear, should I even mention that? Yes, but please try to get those things finished if you can. I realize that if you're struggling with the rest, that might feel a little bit much at times. Do your best. Second portfolio, here we come. And a little bit later on about guided independent study, some suggested reading, and a couple of other issues that I will touch on briefly at the end of the presentation. So key dates, just so you know. So direct observation to formative feedback. I think we're still getting a little bit of confusion about what's summative and formative. And maybe we should just call it feedback and graded. Might be easier. But universities like to have complex words for things. Makes us feel better about ourselves. So formative is essentially not counting towards your final grade. And you submit that just to get feedback so you can refine, make changes, add things, take things away until you get to your summative assignment. Your summative assignment is graded, marked, and counts in some way, shape, or form towards your final degree. So the direct observation is a formative assignment. We're asking you to finish it by the 14th. People have had some struggles trying to get the mentor and themselves and the person with lived experience all in the same room at the same time. So there's no problem with, how would I say, putting the date forward on a little bit. And your SRAs will be the people giving you feedback on that. For your critical reflection on learning, same date. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Updated learning needs and opportunities are formative, but you don't actually upload them onto Canvas. The expectation is that you will be talking to your SRA and the mentor about that. The portfolio 2 is summative, graded, marked, and it is due on the 7th of June. And the Viva, they're all going to be on the 14th and the 15th of June. We actually have a little schedule for that now. And in actual fact, I'll probably send that out tomorrow. And we also have a date booked for a kind of guidance discussion session about Vivas and what to expect and how to manage it. And that will be on the 28th of May. And you should have received an invite for that already, I hope. So we're now moving on, as you know, PCF level, end of first placement. Placement doesn't quite fit for us, but never mind, we won't worry about that. But this will last up till December 2021. So past the end of this academic year and into the start of the next one. These are the general guidelines or guidance that BASWA give us about this. Effective use of knowledge, skills, and commitment to core values and social work. In a given setting, in predominantly less complex situations. I can already see that people are starting to do more complex work. But the guidance is less complex situations, so not the most difficult work you can find, with supervision, of course, and support. Demonstrate capacity to work with people and situations where there may not be simple, clear-cut solutions. And if any of you are working with situations where there are simple, clear-cut solutions, please do let us know, because I think that's fairly unusual. So we've had to cut up the PCF and the IAT levels across the whole course. But while in the first academic year, we didn't really ask you to pay attention to the IATE, now we're starting to learn about that. And in fact, we're collectively learning about this because there's some interesting mapping processes being done. So I don't expect you to take in all the detail of this, but it's just kind of illustration about how we've kind of manage the standards across the whole of the course. So IAT and PCF don't map across each other easily in some ways, and there is no sector guidance. So we made up our own. And actually, to be honest, some apprentices have also made up your own. So well done, you. So the tool that we'll send you is essentially a spreadsheet, but hopefully this will help in cross-referencing. We'll send it out with notes and, just so you kind of know what it is and what it's supposed to do. Well, I'm not going to talk about it in here in great detail because it would be very tedious and would just take up all the room. It would suck the air out of the space. So let's think first of all about the reviews. I know you're in the middle of them. So I hope that you take the opportunity to celebrate success and achievement. Everyone is progressing. This is a remarkable thing in any course. The external examiner says, ooh, some of you were working at level 7 at master's level. But that is great, but not our expectation. Jacqueline often refers to this as tap dancing on the moon. Do you know what I mean? You've got 3 years to progress. Let's make sure it's sure and steady over the 3 years and you get your qualification at the end of it. So it is a good time to pause, reflect, think about the learning opportunities that are available to you now, and perhaps that will last up until the end of December, because that's the period that this particular PCF level covers. Obviously, you're going to talk to your mentor, SRA, perhaps line manager, about these things, and I know those meetings are happening, and there will be follow-ups also. More on that later. So there is a template for the review. The SRA should lead that process and write it up. That's their task, if you will. They will first of all do a couple of brief items. They'll check, are you doing the learner logs? This is stuff for audit purpose. We have to make sure that these things are done. Similarly with the PLC, essentially it just needs to be signed as a record that these meetings are taking place. It's not very time consuming, but if it isn't done, somebody might not get paid. Can't have that, can we? And we also check on maths and English because you need that to progress into your next year. And the index of evidence, we had some talk about exemplars. So some lovely examples that people have. And I asked 1 or 2 people, would they be okay to share? And they were. Would that help? Maybe you can contact me through your reps, etc. I could send you out some examples or maybe the kind of thing we're looking for. Not only the kind of thing we're looking for, but the kind of thing that will help you demonstrate that you have robust evidence and would be, I guess, I keep on using the phrase, would stand up to robust external scrutiny, if you see what I mean. The new index has been circulated, and now, as you see, now with extra IATE. So questions you ask yourself about the learning opportunities. Are they sufficient? And can you access them? Can you actually, get to do these things? Does your workload allow sufficient time to do the apprenticeship? And those kind of conversations, if you have any doubt or kind of concerns, you should really be having them with your SRA and the mentor. See how that goes. You'll update the learning opportunities, obviously, but the SRA will do the review, send you the review notes, but the learning opportunities table, that's a bit of the review document, is blank. So you and the mentor will have to do that. And once you've done that, put the whole thing together, cut and paste it into your existing mentoring agreement. In that way, you'll have a record over the whole year, and that's that element of the portfolio done. So review, learning opportunities, cut and paste into mentor agreement. There you go. So the next direct observation, quite a few people have done those already. We extended the date for formative feedback. Again, you'll get some feedback from the SRA. I've seen a few so far. They're looking very good. Great evidence kind of potential there, and some really good records of excellent work with people with lived experience. So, very encouraging, actually, really. We did do a PLE feedback session. It was recorded and is on Canvas, and that was facilitated by Chandra Sangavi, who's one of our PLE group. So it might be interesting if you can get PLE feedback from the observation. Please do so. I would kind of probably prefer if you use the form to do that. probably is not going to be possible all the time, but you should really get into the habit of thinking carefully about and getting PLE feedback wherever you possibly can. Now, people so far have picked their observations carefully and are a lot more judicious, a lot more choosy about what they want observers to look at. So that's all to the good. Your second portfolio, there's only one graded element in it, and I'll come back to that, but that's the second critical reflection on learning. Obviously, the updated mentoring agreement is said already. Direct observation, yes, just mentioned just now, and the new index of evidence. So they're the key things in it. Obviously, you can add other feedback from other professionals, always a nice thing, and every portfolio will have a confidentiality statement. Actually, I must check the template to make sure it's all up to date. I should have done that before I did this guidance. I'll do that this evening. So the Viva, you know, it may be end of year celebration. For some people, it might be anxiety provoking, but we'll have opportunities to practice. Essentially, really, you can share the draft or outline plan, and you know, it's only a 10-minute presentation, so it might be possible, for example, that you run that by your mentor or your SRA. I would be considering doing that. Practice makes perfect. So a little bit more about where we are with assignments. Overall, 4011 done, big tick. Foundational skills and knowledge, all done, big tick tick. So then you're in the middle of Introduction to Law, Policy and Ethics, but you've already done, I think it's 60% of that module is the online quiz, with your group presentations to come on the 21st of May. So again, all looking very positive, getting there, finish line, not too far off. So on the job learning, you've done your first portfolio, second portfolio, 7th of June, and the 14th of June, and in fact the 14th and the 15th of June for the Vivas. So for the critical reflection on learning, 1,000 words, there is guidance on Canvas. It's very similar in some ways, but I kind of expect to see these incrementally improve in terms of critical reflection, and let's see how that goes. But that's already happening. I can already see that more critically reflective stance in your work more generally. So I prefer, if you write about something other than the observation, I kind of think you should really try to kind of find as many different things to describe or talk about. But the reason I'm saying try rather than don't, because initially I was saying don't, was because it's a critical learning event for you during the year. So what really made a difference to your learning? What was the big deal? And I've said here it might be work with a PLE, most likely. It could be off-the-job learning because somebody has given me an off-the-job learning in the university moment that was very important for them. So in that way, I can't really, in all conscience, exclude entirely the observation because that might be the most important thing that happened to you this year. But I prefer if you didn't, really. That's the long and the short of it. But if you must, you must. Add references to PCF and IAT in a similar way, just little brackets will do for that. You've done this already. I could see it in all your other assignments. And do take advantage of formative feedback. Do you know what I mean? It just improves your draft, gives you some sort of guidance about, oh, a little bit more of this, a little less of that, up to about the 14th of May. So the 14th of May is the absolute last date. If you could do it a little earlier, fine. That might not be possible. See how you can progress that. So the Viva is a 10-minute presentation on your learning across the year. I noticed a typo there. So whereas I'd like your critical reflection to be more focused, the Viva gives you an opportunity to be a little bit more expansive. Now in 10 minutes, it's a challenge. Do you know what I mean? But if you can say a little bit, it might be, I don't know, your professional identity, kind of seeing yourself as a kind of emerging social worker, whatever it is that's important to you. So kind of recap in some way, shape or form what's been important to you in the last year or so. It's an opportunity to celebrate your progress and success. And the small groups is how it's going to be. So there was a kind of a bit of debate, could we do it face-to-face? Initially, our planning was face-to-face. We think that the lockdown isn't sufficiently in place and the restrictions are sufficiently eased to be confident that we can definitely do it in person. So online it will be, and it'll be small groups. So you will have an opportunity to present essentially to your peers. It'll be myself, Susan, and Jacqueline. Some of the other SRAs will be involved in various different ways, and people with lived experience. So it'll be a small audience. And we do have a schedule for this, which we'll be sending out to you. But as I say, it's the 14th all day, and the 15th probably just the morning. So yeah, the sooner you have that date, the better, eh? So I'll be sending that out shortly. There is a little link here. This is our session, a live session just on the Viva, some kind of hints and tips, ways that you might manage that, kind of things to look out for, things to do and not to do, and so on. I've sent out the link. Some people have already accepted that. And well, there it is for what it's worth. But please keep an eye out. If you haven't seen it or it's not landed in your inbox or whatever, give me a shout and let's see what we can do about that. Looking forward. Why is this looking forward when you're actually, well, you always are looking back to look forward, and two things, well, never mind. Extended analogies, very bad stylistically. So course dates and self-guided learning. So the reviews are happening now, probably another meeting in May to ensure everything's okay with the portfolio, and perhaps to do some retrofitting with the IATE standards, because people might need a bit of help with that. The SRAs hopefully will be able to do that for you. There's going to be another meeting then at the probably towards the end of June, once all the portfolios and everything is out of the way. So it's kind of a little bit about anticipating the summer, and also a little bit light touch, very light touch, about the assignment in the new academic year. And I'll come back to that in a minute or two. But this is going to be a group meeting. We'd like to do more group reflective supervision, and so we have some plans for that, but more details to follow in due course. Just a little reminder, I know you know this, but it's worth repeating. The 80-20 split covers the whole year, not just the academic year. So you should be getting your Fridays when you're not actually in the university, because in actual fact, you need that self-guided learning between July, June, end of June, to September. Susan's emailed about this and has raised it again with Spox, just to confirm that we all have a common understanding about that. We will provide some suggestions for reading. No point in doing that now, I don't think. And of course, you may follow your own reading kind of pathway or whatever you're interested in. We'd encourage you to do that. We expect, take your leave. You're going to need a break. That's been a year, hasn't it? I mean, well done for just getting through it. There'll be a little bit more about community of learning, more on this, but the first elements again for this we're planning in June, and that's essentially practitioners within the partnership, within the network, talking about their work in a fairly informal sort of way, kind of maybe a brief presentation, conversation, and then a more open dialogue with the group. Short sessions, about an hour and a half, thereabouts. So you'll hear more about this, but we want to just include some more kind of reflective, kind of not exactly low key, less pressure on these events. So just to kind of mix it up a little bit and bring in some new and different voices and influences. There will be a survey. We're required to do a survey called a QAPL survey, Quality Assessment of Placement Learning. Took me a little while to remember what that was. And so you may well actually find yourself receiving a copy of that at some point. We'll also be surveying the mentors and employers and putting all that together for your entertainment and delight come September. Hopefully we'll learn something from it. The contrasting learning experience will be on people's minds. So we did agree when the course was validated both by Social Work England and by the university and in discussions with employers that the CLE will be 70 days and at the second part of year 2. Probably starting in February. Some people might start in January, and indeed some people might even start earlier. Now we can deal with all of those contingencies as long as we have conversation between the SRAs, the mentors, line managers, and other people who might be involved, including learning and development leads in your organizations. So the employers had lots of comments and questions about this. So we started a task and finish group to work through with them what kind of options are available. So at the end of that, and it should be at the end of May, we'll have kind of concrete guidelines, you know, to cover not all eventualities, but most eventualities to do with CLE. So I'm not going to go on about that now, but you can expect that in the not too distant future. It's only fair really that people have as much time as possible to consider, think and plan that before we get into 2022. Your views are more than welcome. So if you have things to say, your reps are very good at putting your opinions and viewpoints forward. So if you have something to say about this, why don't you say it? Let us know, because we need to hear as much voices as possible. Otherwise, you end up in the dreadful situation where, you know, a person might be thinking, oh, I had an idea about that, but, you know, nobody ever listened to me. That's quite... People with lived experience have that too, isn't it? And we try to avoid that. We know it's best practice, so we're here to listen, and you can tell us what you think. And really looking forward to your first module of the next year. It might seem an awful long way away. It is quite a way away. But the first module in the next academic year is 5010, Interprofessional Working and Developing Your Professional Identity. So this follows on from your first professional identity module at the start of your first year. But that was more about your kind of personal and professional identity. This is about your interpersonal and interprofessional identity and how you work in groups. It's just such a fundamental to social work practice that it's worth actually spending quite a bit of time on, which we will do. So the assignment's not due until December, and there's two parts of it, really. It's a kind of a description and an observation of what happened, and then a kind of essentially a report on this, you know, bring in evidence, bring in research, bring in reflection to what you have seen. So as a kind of heads up, between now and perhaps really more likely between June and September, you probably have an opportunity to observe interagency practice, like core groups, I don't know, Section 42 meetings, panel meetings, MAREX, whatever it might happen to be, and whatever is important to you. So keep an eye out, basically, for those opportunities, because it might be able to, it might help you in the new year if you have a little head start on that assignment, but just doing the observation bit. Don't worry about the theory or anything like that, because we'll give you plenty of theory. But if there are opportunities out there, just take note, essentially, and maybe notes. I think that really is it for the day. I suppose the next thing we'll be thinking about is the next cohort who are currently being interviewed. And you may cast your mind back when it was you online talking to some of us about why you wanted to take up the course. The next cohort are coming along now, and we hope that there'll be some opportunity to have some, you know, meeting of each other at some point, because you're probably more in common with each other than most other courses, most other cohorts of people studying social work. So it'd be nice if you could get to meet up sometime. Let's see how that goes. I think that's quite enough for me. Again, you've got questions. I'm probably missing some things, and I've probably not been as clear with some other things than as I could be. You know where I am. You can contact me in various different ways. So that's quite enough for me. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Take care. Bye.